to get ready for Zoom to crash during the episode. Are you guys ready? There it is. Yeah. Can you hear that music?
Yep. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Zoom conference. We love you. And we also hate you at the same time. All right, let's get into this episode. We're going to talk about Ross's podcast. 5, 4, 3, 2, pay the bill. This podcast is sponsored by Restream. Why live stream to one platform when you can simultaneously live stream to every platform to discover new audiences faster using Restream.io? How to create and launch a successful podcast just right out the gate? How can you get thousands of views immediately, thousands of downloads, listens, everything on your podcast right out the gate? Well, Ross A. Dillon, Twitter juggernaut as we refer to him, and founder of VGFGamers, is here on the podcast today as always. And he launched his podcast GHN on VGF, and it's just blowing up already. He's got gaming celebrities, he's got voice actors, he's already got a co-host, a graphics package. This thing's taken off. I mean, he's just going to go start soliciting sponsors already for his gaming podcast. How many people out there have tried to do a gaming podcast? It went nowhere and it died and they gave up. All of them. But Ross A. Dillon, we're going to talk to him today about what he's doing to basically set himself up for success. I think you can really make this thing work. Ross, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. This is going to be a lot of fun because this is such new territory for me as well that I'm really kind of open for any advice, any listeners, especially you guys, in anything that people want to chime in and throw my way, because this is 100% still a learning opportunity for me.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, can you just walk us through what is GHN on VGF so everybody kind of understands the type of gaming podcast that you're running here, and also help us understand, for those that are just getting to know who you are, how are you getting tens of thousands of views in an episode at a time? Tell them a little bit about your Twitter account and kind of the scale that you're starting with in terms of your audience that you're pushing toward this podcast, because that's the unique factor here, right? You have one of the biggest, and I'm going to pull it up on the screen right now. You have one of the biggest Twitter accounts in the entire gaming vertical in the world. So huge, so big. Tell me about it.
Just massive. Oh yeah, just massive. Huge, as we'd say. Yeah, this is really an interesting kind of experience for me, because I'm not sure if the way that I'm going about this has ever been done before. And I'm not saying that in a bragging way, because there's still a very real possibility that this may just not work whatsoever. I'm confident that it will. Essentially, for people that don't know, about literally 8 years ago, next month, I started this video game account on Twitter, and it was originally just video game facts. I would just go and find all these unique facts, like development stories and stuff about video games, and then I'd post them. And then so that's where actually the name VGFGamers came from, because it used to be video game facts. And after a couple of years, you're just kind of like, wow, you've kind of posted it all. Now you got to switch up and try something different. So that's when I brought in news and memeing and just switched everything.
Well, show us some of the content. Show us some of the content on the screen, buddy.
Oh, some of the content here on the screen?
Yeah, on your screen. Show us some of the content so we can see what that's like.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I was getting way too into it. Yeah, now it's just essentially I post memes, give my opinion on it and stuff like that. There's a lot of new stuff that I'm posting. I share videos from other people that post them up, and they get the credit for it, by the way, not me, as you can see down here. So yeah, it's essentially just like a gaming community of sorts. And after 8 years of running that, I've never really monetized the account at all. I've never really had a desire to. So after 8 years of doing this thing, I'm like, you know what? Everything kind of fell into place here. I've got all the gear to do a good podcast and stuff like that. I've got the motivation, been learning the ins and outs from doing this show with you guys. So it just became very much like, okay, so what am I actually waiting for? Now, the truth of the matter is, when I started this up, I knew I was going to lose thousands and thousands of followers, which I did, because people were not following this account for a podcast. But you know what? After 8 years of 75,000 plus tweets and all the content I put up, if I want to start a podcast, I'm going to start a podcast. And to be completely honest, the people that unfollowed, we're never going to listen to it anyway. So let bygones be bygones. I don't blame them for unfollowing, as a matter of fact. But so after 8 years, it just kind of became, okay, so how do I do this? How do I do this correctly? And it's just kind of fallen into place where, like I said, we got a sponsorship from Rhodes last year. It kind of helped me set up this gear. And it's just an opportunity to do something unique, especially because I'm not tied to any other organization. I 100% own and operate and have grown this account on my own. So I get the final say. I get the only say in what kind of content goes up there. I can do whatever I want on this podcast, and I like that. And I think a lot of the other appeal to it is that as well, is, you know, I'm not backed by some news site that has some other agenda in doing this, or is just trying to get sound bites or video clips from, you know, having celebrities on and stuff like that. And that's really one of the main reasons I wanted to do it, because there are so many people in the gaming industry that that I want to talk to, and I want to have real conversations with them. I don't want to have my questions come at me from another source. I want to be able to ask them what I want to ask them. I mean, I had the CEO of Devolver Digital on and we talked for 45 minutes about psychedelics. Like, that's just, you're not going to be able to do that anywhere else. And it was an incredible interview, and being able to talk to these people and figuring out, you know, not just what they're doing, what are they doing in the gaming industry, but what makes them tick, what makes them relatable as human beings, especially with everything going on right now. I think we could all use that little bit of motivation. That's, you know, hey, it's telling their story about, hey, I did this, and, you know, and this is how, you know, I took a chance on myself. You know, getting those stories from people, it's needed right now. And it's been a wonderful opportunity to be able to do this.
That's great. I mean, one thing I really like about this, and my screen is black. That's awesome. One thing I really like about this is that you are taking your existing content and you're expanding into something new, which is great. And you're not afraid of losing audience, and you're not afraid of losing who you currently have to go fulfill yourself and to fulfill your creative needs, which is something that is admirable. And I think a lot of other creators could take note of this, is that, you know, you're not afraid of losing some followers along the way to do what you want to do and to take your brand to the next level and to the next step. And I think a lot of creators get stuck with one game or one type of content, and they're afraid that if they move away from that, they'll just somehow lose all of their audience and everything that they created will be destroyed. So that hasn't been your experience, right? Everything you created has not been destroyed. Is that correct?
No, it's actually very little has been destroyed. And the good thing about this is, when I made this transition over to where I made the account more about the podcast than anything else, it's so now every time, because this account gets about 700,000 impressions a day. So now every time that somebody comes and visits my profile and sees what I'm doing, they see this as a podcast first. So being able to have that kind of exposure and then carry that over to where now the new people who are just discovering this account are seeing it 100% as more of a podcast. You know, I'm picking up a lot of followers that are just coming in for the podcast. And because I have that kind of reach, it just really works in my advantage. But no, you can't be afraid about losing followers and stuff like that. You just can't, because you're going to. You know, this is, I think you said one time, this is kind of like the Gary V method, you know, spend a lot of time building it up and then jump in. And I was fully expecting to lose, you know, 10, 15, 20,000 followers at a minimum. And it hasn't been the case. It's only been about 5,000 people have jumped ship. You know, but that's still early on. I've done 9 episodes of the podcast now. Only 2 of them have been video. So, you know, I'm still expecting to probably lose a lot more, but, you know, that's part of the game. That's just part of it. And I can't let that distract me, because the people who are unfollowing me were never going to be part of my bigger plan anyway, if that makes any sense.
Ross, what's your biggest platform so far? You know, like you're on Twitter, you're on all the podcasting platforms. And normally I know here the Digital Drop, like, we go out on all these different platforms. There's not really like one that's working really well. Just in the beginning here, like, which one is working the best for you so far?
It's obviously definitely Twitter, just because that's where the bread and butter is. As far as, you know, I'm tossing everything up on YouTube. I'm admittedly not paying too much attention to it right now, just because of time management. But it's definitely been Twitter. Obviously, the first episode we did got about 11,500 views. This one's at 12.7 thousand. So as far as actual audio, though, it's Spotify, actually. And I'm not surprised by that at all. If everyone's seen the recent news, you know, Spotify is essentially trying to take over the podcasting market. So if you're getting a new podcast, it's actually very simple to get on their platform. You just have to have, I think, a couple episodes under your belt and then just go and submit it. So, there's all these platforms that people are not taking advantage of because they're thinking, oh, just Apple or, just Google Podcasts. But there are a lot of these outside ones that you don't typically think of are coming in big, and they're coming in quick. So as far as audio goes, yeah, it's been Spotify. As far as actual video goes, it's easily been Twitter, obviously. We've had some stuff up on Twitch, YouTube. I've done it on Facebook, and just about nothing from those, because it's literally, we're right here. I'm starting with a massive audience, but actually on these other platforms, nobody has any idea who I am. We don't have any followers. We've never really been on there. So that's going to be more of the experiment process, is getting those other platforms to grow.
Let's talk a little bit about the actual programming itself, how you're deciding what content to do in each individual episode. I have to cut to my control room shot so people can see me because Zoom sucks. So how are you deciding what content to do in these episodes? So I know, number one, you can obviously talk about gaming news and memes and culture, and you can just pull from that, right? Because you're the ultimate gaming memes and culture account. But also, it seems that you have like the head of like every studio and major celebrities following you on Twitter that you can pull from for guests. So tell us about how you're thinking about how to come up with those topics for your podcast, and how you're thinking about making your gaming podcast unique versus the hundreds and thousands of competitors that are already out there.
Well, the one thing I'm doing right now is, because I have this account, and I essentially I can put out any question I want and get a couple hundred responses and know whether or not that's going to be a popular title for a podcast. So what we've been doing, not this one up top here, like I actually posted a question about 3 days before we did this episode, and it was, what's your most controversial gaming opinion and hot take? And we ended up getting like 200-300 replies on that. So it's like, okay, well, let's actually just go and break this down. Let's actually go through the responses live on air, move kind of quickly, keep the pace moving so we're not sticking on one game. And so that's kind of the approach I'm taking right now. But this is also something that I wanted to put up for discussion for anybody listening, you guys, is because there is obviously so much to do with this. I don't have any bars around me. I can literally do and talk whatever I want. So if anybody else has any ideas for content or something that they would like to see experimented with or tried, by all means, just hop in my DMs and let me know, because this is still a growing process. But yeah, essentially just being able to ask the questions and get all the material directly from Twitter, and then make sure that people are known, be like, hey, we're going to be talking about this on the podcast. We're going to be showing, we probably be showing you a tweet to thousands and thousands of people. It's an easy way to bring in listeners and get them engaged, because you're actually including them in the podcast. And I know you guys have talked about this before. Well, you literally talk about it every day, in a sense, what to do to keep your audience engaged with you on live streams and stuff like that. We talked about that for quite a bit yesterday as well. So just having that option is the same. It's the same thing here, just kind of worked in a different way, kind of molded up differently. But yeah, I've been incredibly lucky to have a lot of some really big name voice talent and celebrities that are very engaging with this with my account on Twitter. David Hayter, for 8 years, he and I have gone back and forth on this, and he's so good. He engages with people, and then he engages with everybody who engages with him on the account. It's just, the gaming community as a whole is just filled with such unbelievable human beings that can really motivate and inspire us. And that's kind of my goal when we get into actually having interview section on, is to bring that side of it out, because as we all know, the gaming community is pretty toxic.
That makes sense. So let's talk about the technicals, because what you're doing isn't the same as what we're doing here on the Digital Drop podcast. You are doing an in-person, essentially, two-man show. And so I'd be really curious to see, you have some unique tools here. Parents, since my camera sucks right now, can you kind of talk us through and ask Ross questions about his setup and all the different little tools he's using and extras he's using here?
Yeah. First, Ross, I like your intro slide. So can you tell us a little bit about how you put this together? Because I know you did it in using some of the advice, I think, that we've had on the podcast here.
Yeah. And this is actually this little, this background, this, this was actually, if you go to Canva, and obviously Canva is a free platform, you can pay for the premium, but you don't have to. They actually have now video background options. So essentially what I went on there and did was just put all this together on Canva and then just kind of looped it. So, and it was 100% free. It took 5 minutes to do tops. So there are tools out there. I mean, and this doesn't look spectacular. I'm obviously going to be updating this in the near future, but I was just in such a rush to get it going that it's simple. It's too simple to not use. So anyway, with my setup here, essentially what I'm doing, I am using OBS, and I just have with the scenes in OBS. For people that don't know, scenes are essentially like what the camera. It's what your camera is going to be on. And so I have a pre-roll that when I play my intro, this plays for about 5 seconds. And then I have my camera, Micah's camera, who's my co-host, and then a timeline camera, which is essentially kind of what you're not going to be sealed now because I turned the cameras off, but it shows us in the corners, and then it's the timeline of Twitter that we go through on there. And that's all I use. And it's actually, I do all the producing and stuff while we're live. I just hotkey all these. So I've got I think my name is Z, Micah's X, and the Twitter timeline is C. And then I can just sit there, and while we're doing it, actually just be able to manually produce it and go back and forth. It's actually very easy to do. It's something that I was concerned about just because, you having to produce and host at the same time. But after 2 minutes into the podcast, it's just second nature. So this is certainly nothing to be intimidated by. You can see how easy this setup is to do. And then it also connects just OBS. Just right now, it's just directly into the VGFGamers Periscope. And I'm going to be setting it up with Restream, obviously, because I want to use that because it's awesome, and just start taking this onto Twitch and YouTube all at the same time.
That makes sense. And speaking of which, we have a contractual obligation with Restream for me to say something about them right now. So Restream.io sponsors this podcast. And if you want to stream on multiple platforms at the same time, sorry, you have to look at the back of my head and my bald spot, then you should use Restream.io. There's a link in the description of this particular video and in our bios if you want to get $10 off your first month. It helps give us credit for sending you over to Restream, or use code DROP25, DROP25, to get 25% off Restream. Right now, as you can see right here, we are live on Twitch, DLive, Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope at the same time using Restream.io. Ross is about to use it on his podcast. Perrin already uses it on his live streams. Why the hell aren't you using Restream? Anyway, back to the show. Great point, actually. And what I love about OBS and doing this is obviously right now we are doing this show 100% live. It comes up on YouTube live. It comes up on Periscope live. However, when I do my podcast, just because I'm still in the beginning, the trial and error part, trying to figure out what's working and what's not, I actually pre-record. And then you can actually, and I'll show you right here, you can just do set this up for later. And then you can just go in here and pull in a media source. So we pre-record all the whole show actually right here on OBS, right over here. You can just start recording. You don't even have to be streaming to do it. And then, if I needed to, which we haven't luckily yet, I can go through and edit anything we need, and then just toss it in as an MP4 and replay it as if it was live on all these accounts. And I'm not doing that to be misleading to people. My goal is obviously to do this 100% live, but now, like I said, still in the learning stages, and people, when they come into chat and stuff about it, then I can actually be right there in the chat talking with them while they're watching this to kind of give it a unique twist.
So you have your co-host is actually in the studio with you, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And so that does simplify setup things a little bit, because I know the challenge here on the Digital Drop podcast is bringing people in remote. Have you had gone through the technical challenge yet of bringing in a guest remotely? Or is that something next that you're going to have to tackle?
Yeah, well, I already know how I'm going to have to tackle this, and I could be completely wrong. There's a very good likelihood that I'm just making this so much more difficult than what it needs to be. But I've already got one mixer in here. In order to do that, because I've got a 2-computer setup, in order to do this, I'm going to have to more than likely get like a cheap mixer. They have like $80 mixers just to connect to my second computer and then do it over Zoom like what we're doing. So he's going to have a computer on him when we're doing Zoom. I'm going to have one on me, and it's just going to auto switch between all of us. If there's an easier way to do that, I am all up for suggestions, because that has been wrecking my mind for 2 weeks now.
I mean, you can, you could probably mix yourself and Micah in the same mixer, and that would help. So that would be a good thing. The one thing, no, I got to change gears for a second, because this has been standing out to me a lot. Your logo, how did you do it? Because I love it. Where did, like, did you, because that came out, like you brought that out recently, I think, and it's the best branding VGF has ever had. And like, where did you get it, man?
It's actually a funny story. There is a website, and I can't think of it right now. I can send it out later. And there is a website where they actually do professional sports teams, professional logos for sports teams, and they do a lot of esports teams on there too. So I just went in there and just made myself a graphic. I didn't do any of this design. All I did was add the GHN on VGF in there, and that was literally it.
It's really good. Like
I appreciate it. Yeah, I wanted something unique that kind of stuck out, went through a lot, and this is just the one I landed on. But you know, this just goes to serve the lesson that we've been talking about for so long, is there is so many other ways without spending lots of money to do it. Now, however, you can tell the quality on this is not 100% great. So I am 100% going to eventually have to, you know, get this professionally redone, maybe see if a designer, kind of what we talked about yesterday, has some more ideas about what to do with this. And maybe I don't want to go through a complete rebranding again, but the point of it is, if you need a starting place, there are definite starting places where you can go, where you do not have to spend lots of money. I think this costs maybe $30 to do.
That's amazing. I make sure you send that to me afterwards. I've got to work on my own branding, and I didn't realize it was so simple. I thought that you actually had somebody do that. That's amazing. What's next? I guess, like, what topics? So you get to like really hit any topic that you want. Like, what's going to be like your next big topic that you really want to hit in gaming? Because you've been running a meme account for a long time. Is one of the topics eventually going to be talking about the gaming meme culture? Or you and I have had lots of conversations about this for Twitter.
Meme review, please. Meme review.
Yeah, like,
yes, I
like,
definitely
are you gonna
want
do
to
like a meme review? Like, can users submit their favorite gaming memes and review them? Like, there's like, oh my god, there's so much stuff. There's so much stuff. Like that you could do. What's the one thing that you like really want to hit?
That's a good question. There are a lot of topics in gaming that I really want to hit, and I've obviously I definitely want to do a meme review, just because that's so much fun, and just because that's what the country is just 100% based off of. And by the way, all the memes I get, 99% of them are actually sent to me by people, so I don't have to do much curation anymore. I can just share what people send me. But yeah, I definitely want to hit on the meme things. And another topic that I've been kind of slightly hinting at and wanting to get into more, and it's one that really pisses a lot of people off. It's the fact that we absolutely need a price increase in gaming in order to stabilize the gaming industry. It's just 100% going to happen. We've been at, $59.99 for prices for games for 15 years. It's not covering that anymore. It's going, if there's going to be a change in the industry, we're going to have to raise that price, and we're starting to see that coming up with next gen with $69.99 games. But and I've had that conversation a lot, and I really want to dive into that. I really want to get some gaming journalists on, and even there's somebody that works specifically. His niche is economics within gaming. I'm going to try and get a couple of those on too, and really just break this down, because I think it needs to be addressed, and I'm not seeing it addressed really anywhere else. But there's going to have to be some major changes coming in the video game industry. And it's going to have to start with a price increase. The prices of everything is going to have to go up, because we are in a situation right now where these microtransactions are completely not stable, 100% moving forward. We've already seen the government start taking action on these. So there's going to have to be a drastic shift, because only the big companies are actually profiting off microtransactions, like your Rockstars and stuff like that. It's not stable. Something big is going to have to happen, or we could be in a position, not necessarily a monopolized position, but we're looking at, maybe 5, 6, 7 companies in the future that are completely dictating and controlling the way the industry is run. And that's not going to be beneficial towards anyone.
Ross A. Dillon, that was compelling already. So people should clearly be listening to your podcast. Where can they find your podcast? Tell them the handle.
Oh, just go to Twitter @VGFGamers. You can find it there. That's where we post it. But we also post all the clips and the live show. It's also reposted over on YouTube. Just go search GHN on VGF. Check it out. Give me your feedback too. I want to hear ideas, what other people are thinking, what you'd like to see, what you don't like, especially. So hit me up on that. And I appreciate you guys letting me talk about this today. This was fantastic.
You had our permission today to talk about it. And people are mentioning other solutions out there for live podcast guests. Restream.io has one that they're launching. There's also a platform called StreamYard that is launched that lets guests just join and it just does a video podcast for you. So we might be trying those in the future because Zoom sucks. So we can look into other solutions and maybe we can talk to you guys about it. A bunch of people are chatting live with us about it, and maybe VHF could benefit from that. Ross, I'm so excited for your podcast. I can't wait to see you get your own sponsors as well for this podcast and to just watch this thing take off. You have so much talent and you've built such a great audience and you've done it the right way. The biggest takeaway I have from this is you spent years building the audience first. Now you're looking at making a podcast and maybe making some money off of it. Tens of thousands of pieces of content later down the road. That's what's up. That's the right way to do this thing. I love that about VGF.
Oh, I appreciate it. I'll have to get you guys on the podcast so you can brag about me on there too. That'd be awesome.
Sounds great. Oh, Ross, we love you so much on your own podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the Digital Drop Podcast. We're available on every single audio platform there is, as well as every single live streaming platform there is. So follow us on all of them because why not, right? Restream. We can be everywhere. It's that easy. See you in the next episode of the Digital Drop Podcast. And I hope this was inspiration for you to switch up your strategy and make the content you want to make. Regardless of years of making one type of content, Ross changed his strategy. It's working. You can change your strategy and make it work for yourself as well. Adios, amigos. Keep creating.